Hi, I'm Lori.
And I'm Kevin, and this is No Longer Ashamed.
We are survivors of childhood sexual abuse.
And we're here to share with you that if you're a survivor, you don't have to be alone.
Our logo is a salamander, and the reason is a fire salamander can survive a fire, and you have survived a fire.
We want to help you with your journey to healing and hope.
We are all survivors together, and we walk this journey together, and you are not alone.
By telling our stories, we are hoping that you will have the courage to share your stories as well and find your voice.
Because stories are so important, and for so long I know that I wouldn't tell my story, but when I finally shared my story, that's when I got my freedom.
And this is our journey and your journey to healing and hope. So come with us.
We just wanted to take a little time today and talk about coercive control. It's used in domestic violence, but it's also used in childhood abuse. And it's actually illegal in the UK. Now, it's illegal here in the US if a crime goes along with it. But coercive control here's 12 signs to know if you are in a relationship with coercive control. They isolate you from your support system. You see that a lot in new relationships. They monitor your activity throughout the day, which a lot of times people think that's love.
Yeah.
They think, oh, isn't that sweet? But then you get to this point and you're like, oh, wait, that's creepy.
Yeah.
They deny you freedom and autonomy. So they want to be connected at the hip where you go, I go. Gaslighting, and I'm just going to read gaslighting. The abuser must always be right, and they will force the victim to acknowledge this. They manipulate and lie and gaslight to get their way and convince you you are wrong. Name calling and putting you down, which I've had clients and they've said, oh, well, he calls me this or that. And they don't even realize that that's a put down because they've been so controlled. And so when somebody puts you down and calls you names that aren't nice, there was this one show, I can't remember. I think it was a book I read. And the husband always called the wife old girl. And when she finally got, stood up to the family, she said, and by the way, don't call me old girl. And, this was back in the 1800s or whatever, but still, that's not a nice name.
Yeah. Well, and even nicknames that seem enduring but are demeaning, like old lady or,
my old lady.
My old lady. Yeah, that's not exactly, it sounds endearing, but it's demeaning.
Yeah. Limiting your access to money, controlling finances as a way of restricting your freedom and ability to leave the relationship.
Yeah.
Reinforcing traditional gender roles.
Oh, that's interesting.
Turning your kids against you.
Oh, yeah.
Controlling aspects of your health and body, saying that you're overweight or you need to exercise or you shouldn't be eating that. Making jealous accusations. We hear this all the time. They call them a whore or whatever. And I often think if they're calling you that, it must be because they're doing something. But making jealous accusations, regulating your sexual relationship, threatening your children or pets. And then there's, if you look it up online, 12, how to recognize coercive control. How to recognize coercive control. And then also we just always want you to remember that there is a hotline. And if you pull it up, the hotline.org, it'll give you a warning. So if someone's looking over your shoulder, how you can make sure they're not seeing that you're trying to get help. The number is 1-800-799-SAFE 7233. 1-800-799-SAFE. SAFE 7233. So you can go online to hotline.org or you can call this number and they will talk you through it. They'll help you escape and get away. You don't want to just do it on your own. You don't want to confront. If you're hearing this and you're like, oh my gosh, all these things or 6 of these things, then go get help. Call a domestic violence. They will talk you through it. They'll help you know what steps to take, how to plan, so that they don't know you're going to leave. And the reason I wanted to talk about it is often if you are abused as a child, you may end up in a relationship like this.
Because you've learned behavior. You've learned relationships that were unhealthy, so that's where you lean towards, is unhealthy relationships.
Yeah.
And because of that, you oftentimes end up in unhealthy relationships.
And what we always say is it's not your fault.
No, and you didn't deserve it, but you were taught that you deserved it. You were taught that it was your fault, and you were taught that those things they said about you, those names they called you, you internalize that when you're young. And because of that, that becomes part of your identity, because you believe that from what they told you, from what they were telling you. And as a result, you start to act out in that way.
Yeah, because the first thing they attack is your self-worth. And so if you are in a relationship like this, there is help. There is a hotline, and be careful, but get help. And we say, tell your story, but I also think if you're in a situation where if you tell your story, you're not going to be believed, or bad things are going to happen. Like we talked about, often we believe it because we were threatened, but now that you're an adult, bad things aren't going to necessarily happen. But that you might get separated from the family. That's what happened to me. Yeah. So get help. Go to a professional. Call a domestic hotline. Find a way to start getting the resources where you can get some strength and courage and support as you walk through this, because it is real. And so often when you're in a difficult situation, you think, oh, it must be me. Oh, I must be. If I was only a better wife, if I was only a better mom. But the truth is, it's called coercive control. And it's a way that they try to keep you under their thumb. And if I've learned anything in this life, we have a right to be who we are.
Yeah, and not be told what's wrong with us. Look at, when we interviewed Hampton, here's a man who was in an abusive relationship with his spouse. And at first, he didn't understand it was abuse. I mean, this was an example of coercive control. She basically convinced him that it was all his fault. At the time, she was also abusing their children. And they had 10 kids, and that was also a form of control on her part. So it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. You could be under coercive control and not even realize it at first. So the important part is realizing, oh, wait, this isn't the way it's supposed to be. There's something wrong with this relationship. I'm not the one who's...
It's not me.
It's not me. I'm not the one that's the bad person here, even though they're telling me I'm the bad person here.
Exactly. They need you to be the bad person. And if you remember, Hampton went to his pastor, and his pastor said, you going to let her do that?
Yeah, you going to let her do that to you?
And when you're under coercive control, you are under control. And the one thing I remember is when he would come home and he didn't want sex, then she would accuse him of having affairs. It's all in that list that I read.
Yeah. When you were reading that list off, I was thinking about Hampton and thinking, pretty much ticked off most of those, most of those boxes.
And, what he said is he came from a very normal childhood. Yeah. So, I'm not saying everyone in those situations may have been abused as children, but you are likely to get in a situation like that if you've been controlled as a child. But often we want to run to our friends, and I would just say be careful, because they're going to want to control you too. They're going to say, get away. They don't know. They do not know what you are going through, and they may try to confront the controller, and that could make your and your kids' life even worse. So go to a professional, call the domestic violence hotline, start to get the kind of help you need, and then ask your friends and your family to call and find out how they can support you. That's what Hampton said. He said, if the family calls, then they'll know if they try to pressure you, it's only going to make things worse.
Yeah, so have them talk to the professionals first.
Right. And it's a process.
Because the people that you think are going to be the most helpful might not be. I mean, Hampton got pretty terrible advice from his pastor. And so we don't know who's going to be giving us the good advice unless we talk to someone who's really, they're professional. This is what they do. That's why the crisis lines, the various crisis lines are so important. These people are trained to handle this. They know how to help you get a plan, understand the dangers, understand your rights, and also the ways that you can safely escape a situation like this.
Yeah, because I had a short second marriage and I had to escape.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't just leave. He would hide my purse, hide my keys. I had to make a plan. I had to have a backup of everything. So I had a fake purse, and then I had my real purse that I kept hidden. And so that I would always have my keys, because he would take it. One day my neighbor called and said, "Looks like there's a purse up on your roof." He had thrown my purse with all my, my debit card and my keys, everything. And so you want to have a plan. And if I would go to, I went to one friend who thought he was a teddy bear and didn't believe me of what we were going through.
Yeah.
And then another friend is like, "You got to get out now." And I couldn't do that either, because what happened is when I would try to leave, like I'd go stay with my sister, he would blow up my phone. He would blow up their phone. We unplugged every phone in her house. And I'll tell you, they have so many phones. Back in the day, we had landlines. And we thought we'd unplugged the last one and we'd hear another one ringing, and so they will behave very badly and very scary. And so you want to protect yourself, and you want to be wise, and you don't want to make a quick decision.
No.
You've been living that way for a certain amount of time. You could make it a little bit longer with help of a professional.
Yeah, as long as you can get a plan, because you can't predict how badly they will react when you do try to get away. And you can't predict what the consequences might be. So you really need to be careful, because it could be life-threatening.
There's a really great book. I suggest everyone in the world read it. It's called The Gift of Fear by Gavin de Becker. And he has another one, Protecting the Gift. It's about parenting and how to protect your children. But he talks about trusting your instinct. And he basically does a MO on these people that can't take a no. So often, if they are very scary and controlling and violent, if you get a restraining order, that might be your death wish.
Yeah, that might be the worst thing to do.
And that's what your whole family will tell you to. And my family told me to. And I knew in my heart of hearts, if I got a restraining order, I was going to have a fall off a ledge or down the stairs. I really believed that. And so I didn't get one. And I'll tell you what, my friend, my family, they were so mad at me, but I knew I did the right thing. And that's why it's so good to find a professional to help you.
Yeah, especially in these instances. Now, for me, I didn't know when we discussed talking about the subject. I don't know much about it. What are the symptoms, would you say, of if you're in a relationship that doesn't seem right? Like when you were your second marriage, what was the starting signs? What were the beginnings of what caused you to realize this wasn't right?
There was a time when between us, we had 7 kids, and we had them all in the summer. And so we had a TV in our room, so we go in the TV in the room to watch the news. And there was a situation in Tacoma where a police chief was married. His wife tried to leave him, and he asked her to meet him at the grocery store. Either asked her or he followed her there, and he killed her in front of the kids, and then he killed himself. And this is what he said to me: "See, you better mind yourself."
Yeah, that's a big red flag.
Yeah. And so I knew. And there was a time when he was yelling at me, and I'm a little person, but I would never back down to him. And he knew he couldn't hit me because he would leave a mark and then he would get in trouble. So he'd just get in my face and scream at me. And I'd just stand there and he goes, hit me. He played all of those games. And the reason I left is someone that we're actually going to have on this show, her name is Dale, was the kids' school counselor. And she came to my door and she said, "Your kids are telling me what's going on. And I'm going to have to call CPS if you don't grab them and leave."
Yeah, because she was required to report because the kids had talked to her. And
I felt like I was getting the brunt of it. I knew they were unhappy. But once she said that, it was like, oh, okay. But even so, he stalked me for years. I'd be at the school parking lot dropping off kids, and he'd jump in my car. He'd show up at school 2-3 times a week. That's where I had my office for my job. And finally, people did believe me, so they protected me. So whenever he would come to school, they'd call my office and say a word, whatever word of the week was, and I go back in the detention room and hide until they came and got me. So it is really a serious thing. And then my daughter was like not having any of it, and so she would get in his face. Well, that only made it worse. Really? It only made him come after us more. So people don't know, and they try to help, and it's not helpful. So you start to know. With my clients, often they know something's wrong, but they don't know what. And when they'll say like, oh, well, he calls me a name. He controls the money. He or she has a gun.
Yeah.
And I've had clients say to me, if I don't show up for an appointment, go check my yard because he'll probably bury me there. And I said, do you know that's not normal?
Yeah.
And she just laughed because she'd been hearing it for so long and believing it for so long.
That it just became normalized.
Yeah. Yeah. And so once she started to recognize it and started seeing a counselor along with a coach, she started to see things different, get the help she needed. But it's a process because you're brainwashed in a way. So you have to give yourself a lot of grace.
Yeah.
Yeah. So coercive control. And if you are an adult who was abused as a child and you still have that parent or that family member in your life and they're using that, find a professional. Learn how to stand up for yourself. Learn how to protect yourself. You do not need to be controlled by that person anymore. They did it when you were a kid, but as an adult, you can break that.
And you need to pay attention to what sort of relationships you have in your life. And whether you're leaning towards people that are manipulative, that are coercive, that are abusive. Is that a pattern that you've learned? Is that something that you've become more inclined to because of what happened to you when you were young? And if so, it's a really good reason to get help to learn how to undo those patterns.
Right. And like Kevin and I always say, there's so much hope, and facing it is hard, but it is so worth it. When you get free in your life and you can let go of that and tell your story, be able to just live the life you want. It is so wonderful. And, I know it's scary. There is help. I just want to say, there is help. And if you are being controlled, whether still from afar as an adult and have parents or family members, or if you're in a relationship, there is help.
Yeah.
And you can make that phone call. And there's an app called Aspire, and it's a news app. But it's really an app where you go on. It looks like, if they look over your shoulder, it looks like a news app. And you can type in help. You can, whatever you need. So
Aspire.
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 Yeah, and it's a free app. And so once you start to recognize a few things, you're liable to recognize more. And you've got to give yourself some grace because these people are masters at their craft.
Yeah. Yeah,
there are doctors and lawyers who are so powerful in the courtroom, so powerful at surgery, and they're being controlled by a spouse.
Well, part of it is they have to be good at in order to get away with it.
Right.
And we've talked about that with abusers. The only way they can get away with it is if you do keep it a secret, if you do hide. And so they have to be good at in order to get away with it. And that's the only way they can continue to do it. And so that's why they will also fight like hell to keep you from getting away from it, because then it will come out and, they won't be able to do it anymore. So they will fight like hell. They will do practically anything. So that's why it can be so dangerous, is because they know once it's found out, then they're going to lose all control.
Yeah. And here's the thing. Once you start this process, it might be really hard, but always know there's a light at the end of the tunnel. That's the one thing you want to hold on to, because there are times when you feel like they will always have control over me. But if you're getting professional help, you can get out of that situation, and it'll be hell. It'll be hell at first, and you choose your hell. If I stay, if I leave, but there is help. And I just feel like I want people to know that.
Yeah. Well, I think your point is really valid, that as survivors, we've learned that, we've been taught that we don't matter, that we're not worthy,
Right.
etc. All those things that we were taught.
And anybody can treat you badly.
And we've been taught that it was our fault. All these things that we were taught, if we don't address them, if we don't go to therapy, if we don't, learn the ways to undo what was done to us, we'll continue to repeat. We'll continue to just live what we've been taught. And so we will tend towards those patterns, those relationships that are abusive, that are coercive. And so as a survivor, we're probably a lot more vulnerable to these kinds of relationships, especially if we haven't ever talked about what happened to us and dealt with it.
Yeah.
And I think I keep talking about this, but what happened to us, we didn't deserve. It wasn't our fault. But it is our responsibility to deal with our issues. That's what's our responsibility. And it's not fair. I lived years of, just being pissed off because I had all these issues. But it is our responsibility to deal with these issues, as far as if we want to live a full life, you kind of have to deal with it.
I had the pleasure of interviewing Amanda Knox. And I said, how do you go from victim to survivor? And she said, you face it head on.
Yeah.
That's all you can do. You can sit and be bitter and mad, or you can face it head on. And what she went through was so horrendous, but her life now, she wouldn't change it for $1 million. She has a wonderful husband. She's, doing what she loves. Not the life she imagined.
No.
And certainly
not the path that she thought she would get there,
right.
I'm sure.
But that's the thing, is things happen to kids, things happen to adults, people are falsely accused, and it's never okay. And it's it's not our fault, but it is our responsibility to face it head on and get free.
Yeah.
You want to be free, and if you hold on to unforgiveness, you're the one who's hurting, because they're off doing their thing. They don't even know.
Yeah. It doesn't affect them.
Right.
When you're holding it in. And if you don't ever address this, the only one that's going to suffer is you.
And it will come out in your health. It'll come out in relationships. I mean, there's people in nursing homes that no one will come see because they just have so much bitterness from things that have gone wrong in their life. And we want to save you from that. Tell your story. Talk to somebody.
Get the help that you deserve. And get the healing that you deserve. But it starts with you.
Yeah. And so again, if you feel any of these things that we talked about, coercive control, are problems in your relationship, call the Domestic Violence Hotline. It's hotline.org, or call the number and start getting the help you need. If you want to reach out to us, we'll at least, support you. We're not counselors, but we will support you. And it's taken that first step, which is so scary. Be safe, do it safely, but get free.
Yeah. Find the help that you need and you deserve, and to protect yourself and your family. So that's it for today.
We are going to have a prayer time if you want to stick with us. If not, we believe in you.
We want to hear from you. We want to hear your stories.
If you like this podcast, please rate and review, because that's how other people can find us. And we really want to spread this message.
Father, I thank you for, most of all, the hope that you are in our lives. You have given us hope for that we do matter, that you do care about us, that you do love us, and you want us to know that we have a purpose and that you have a purpose for us. And I pray that anyone listening would recognize that they have a purpose, that their lives do matter, and there is hope. And I pray that you would just fill their lives with your grace and your love and your hope, and that you would help them to heal, Lord. And I just pray for your healing in their lives. And I pray that the people that need to hear this would be able to find us and hear the story and find the resources they need to get out of whatever situation they are and to get into a healing and hopeful life. And that they would find their purpose, and that they would be able to fulfill their purpose in their life. In your name I pray.
Father, I know there's somebody listening who is just hurting. Father, they were treated badly by their parents, and I just want to say to them, I'm sorry. I'm sorry you didn't get the mom or the dad. I'm sorry you didn't get the family that would protect you. And I just pray for this person, Lord, that as they're listening and they're relating, Lord, that you will just guide them to the place where they can get help, Lord, and help them to be able to, number one, realize it's not their fault. And Lord, you love us, and we don't love ourselves very well, Lord. It takes a lot for us to learn how to love ourselves, and I just pray that that we will start to love ourselves. We'll be able to look in the mirror. We'll give ourselves some grace and be able to say it's not our fault, but it's our responsibility. I thank you, Lord, for that, and I thank you that you are a good, good God, and that you want to bless us and you want us to live a joyful life. In your Son's holy name, amen.
Amen.